for me. Very.
Very coordinator Banjika una Pamela Mkun Berry, President General for this initiative and for all the trust we could I'm very so we are Jennifer Dedem. I will use if we are on Facebook and we do live. Very listen in Kashibuana Sanketu. Kids very challenging band, even personally. My responsibility, we love Zermoji, Vesadeben Young Ki, no matter what answer I give, I sleep with a guilty conscience, just like any other person. Sasibena, Amon Solayong, Sibena. After young Bayangam Kumi, Angmepo, Ariake Kumi. So this opportunity, I'm sharing Konkong Mosenko Kene. Time for me, President General, in many instances for a very long time on this issue. You Lord na even kwa Yuri. So the outline is very brief, just for 5 key areas. Then more young you can get the introduction of some look again. Now can you care peace key or we care ready-made answers. The only thing the and nanaka can you nanaka wo you do baji awasune. Come, let us talk. Come, let us discuss. So I form loke. So so do the next slide. So sendo yi leji kisa ke for fair ayi neka so da yenele for the vision and objective. Isen me yonji mosenya yiben. What are the key challenges? A caveat, listen kemo barayonji caveat. Then mosen kemo kunkum rely akpaji den zebenai lo wai umiki for tebe tamaliti who are and tira rekasam ayele lo lebe yenji for land ningi for la women rafenji men litum sen rafsa land we vidja ku kun vidja ri daram biurene zabe ye okay ku ya lo sen shacho the rene is a mental commission fake baraya yonji a low hanging fruits sen kolole sen yata then sen conclusion when the jika sen le yafambi alo make yelom comfort ke una conclusion ji there's no easy way and about us na yongaji kitaba ke ga about na leji we for planning on Mars or Jupiter with Yamoven so I will come so shan so order. Kimina digi sen lo yemena ki ye have sen being Mungarama bu very consider to love the Kusial, sen Zaji, sen Kusitu we lot of my yonji lamso alum you see a word the regretted word I'm sorry loving your young then you learn your jam and kuntayajam. So it's a menakiji in Yuka Cocoon. So kick for let me put it in English so I could be a little bit faster so that I can go and then we can have more time to discuss. It all started as a teachers and lawyers demands. We all know, I will not go too much into that, but it has snowballed into a crisis or a war, if we can be very forthright. I know people don't want to use this word for various reasons. But we are here to look for peace. So at times we will have to call a spade and remove a little bit of diplomacy. Now, we already have lots of non-state armed actors and armed groups, a lot of them. I've done so chacha in so alone, we have many. And that is the characteristic of what is happening on the ground. So sometimes it's not easy. You have heard when the general body, the UN, asked for a ceasefire, 1 or 2 groups said, we are going for a ceasefire. The others said, look, you are on your own, like we say here in Nigeria. But most importantly, we all know that SO has been disproportionately affected by this war. Though there's no assessment to give statistics on so, but when we listened at one time, when the Catholic Church released some statistics of the number of deaths, number of houses burnt, number of just a few indicators, but we have to take all the rest of the indicators to take how much it has cost us. The hospital facility that so used to stand, ahead of every other person, we have lost it all. We have lost it all. And the greatest wealth to people is health and education. These are the 2 main casualties, despite the lives of people. And we always, respect all lives and may their souls rest in peace. But I can tell you that the cost in terms of health, in terms of education, and more in businesses is uncountable. But the implications, what is happening in South today, it has far-reaching implications. Also meaning that whatever we will do to bring peace or to bring some sort of respite in so, it will also have far-reaching implications. Now, people have asked, what has SODA been doing all this while? What have you people and some people been doing all this while? But sometimes I used to answer in a very nice way, because when I hear somebody from so asking a question like the person is coming from another part of the world, I ask myself, who are you really a SODA person? Of course, it's also we have to understand, because the trauma that people have gone through, the pain and the emotions have made people not to think. So sometimes, brothers and sisters, when you hear people saying certain things, one of the things you must know is that everybody is suffering from post-traumatic effects. They can be in various levels. But before I go to that, there were lots of initiatives that have been going on, even negotiating, even how to get humanitarian relief. President of Saudi is here. He can tell you how much they have done as an organization which he is heading and has done tremendous work that all of you know about. Many other organizations on ground, like the Catholic Diocesan Peace and Justice Commission, and all other structures I will not name here, but I know they have been doing fantastic work on the ground. But in 2018, because of one pressure, there was a lot of things, and things were still so uncontrolled that we created at the instance of the President General, what we call solutions platform, to look at these issues. But initiatives that came out of it were ad hoc, and it had not given us what we wanted fully. Are you hearing me?
Yes, for
Yes.
me, yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Excellent. Excellent. So I wanted to go back to the point of what has been done so far. So this solutions group was created, and as you said, when I have time, I go back, I see what people were saying. Despite the emotions, lots of things have been put on the table, and we picked lots of them, and we'll continue to do so. When you go to them, so first, there are moments where people say certain things, sometimes very prescriptive, sometimes very angrily put, sometimes very unrealistic, sometimes very, you can use any kind of adjective to describe what we have heard, but we all picked all that. And so that was the rationale. It now dawned on the President General that we are now ripe, after all the hiccups and the rest, right, to bring in something very concrete, to begin the journey. The journey of peace is not just a one day, not an event. In fact, it is a process, because peace is supposed to create the enabling environment for any other thing. When I hear about reconstruction and what is happening, I nod my head, I said, God, let us talk to each other. Because people do not know. You cannot be talking about reconciliation fully now. I am not saying we should not plan, but you cannot talk of reconciliation in this context now. So there is a path that we have skipped, and this is one of those initiatives that we are doing. In summary now, in SODA, after our consultations, we brought this issue to say, let's coin what we call a vision. It is still something in progress, and we are going to improve it. But the vision of this peace and reconciliation initiative, which is forward-looking also, is that we were looking forward to, in the next 2, 3, 5 years, we want a peaceful and stable and reconciled, so covering all the kingdoms involved, where all sons and daughters are exercising and enjoying their inalienable cultural rights in pride and dignity, thereby contributing to the sustainable development. We all, from the UN side, which, we hear us, we like a lot of slogans. We cannot say one or two things without talking about the SDGs. And there's no way we would succeed in the SDGs if we do not have this enabler, which is the peace and enabling environment. So the aims are, one, to restore the dignity of the Fandom and traditional institutions that have been damaged, dampened by the crisis that is going on, and to look for lasting solutions to the crisis and other lingering problems that have been around. You all know that when this crisis that we're talking about, is just now what we are seeing, but they were overdone. There were other fire, there were other crises that have, increased, amplified the current crisis that we have on ground. So we needed to have a facilitated dialogue and an engagement and more sensitization. And we cannot say we cannot do it. We cannot dialogue now because the environment is not yet ripe. We can at least sensitize. We cannot sensitize, we can begin lots sorts of engagements. Of course, we have also had to contribute to de-escalating the war and what I'm talking about, engagement. People talk about a ceasefire. But let me assure you, great people on top, that a ceasefire is like a goal. Don't say you can't put a ceasefire. When you say yes, then we begin to put it. It may not be ideal. I can also, from experience, tell you that there's no single crisis that has taken place in Africa or any part of the world that there was just one ceasefire and it succeeded. But let us begin at least to see, because once you begin and put everybody in the mood of saying we can stop and listen and talk, you are already pushing people to a point where they may not, of not turning back, and that is dialogue. And at the end of the day, every war has ended, even the world wars ended with a dialogue and a sit down. So what we are saying is, can we precipitate and hasten that moment to come and save more lives from coming? Of course, all this will happen in the context of our mantra. So first, you will realize that the idea of reconciliation is very big, expanded. It has lots of connections. It may come, we may rule it out as a medium or long-term issue. But then we must have that in mind as where we want to go. Next, and the next slide will continue to say, we also have to do a series of diplomacy and shuttle, what we say shuttle. Go here, talk here, come here, go to this side, go to that side. And that's why when I hear people talk about certain language here, I put my head down and said, we do not know. We want to know people who are very close to the fighting fox in the bush. We will need them when we want to begin a process. We want to know people who are very close to the government side. We will need them when we want to reach out to say this is what they are saying. You need all these interlocutors. It is not a neither, no, or either or. So we want bridges, people in the connectors in the middle. And that's where we want, we want to focus. Sometimes some people want to talk tough. Sometimes people talk tough and whatever. But in doing what we are going out to do now in terms of peace, we must know that tough talking is not always going to help us. So efforts at comprehensive reconciliation, like I said, is something we have to figure out in the medium and the long term. But then, peace and reconciliation cannot be a standalone. It links to the ongoing initiatives, whether it is culture, whether it is because the issues what we're dealing with will be cultural issues, and whether it is farming. What you want to do is that, are you just going to say peace? If somebody asks you, do we eat peace? What type of empowerment proposals are we putting on the table? That is what we will be looking at as we move on. Of course, education, which we have highlighted even here. So the caveats, the challenges, and the opportunities that we may want to emphasize are: one, peace means different things to many stakeholders. The government says, il y aura la paix par tous les moyens. That's, there must be, for them, il faut les mater. I hear language that people talk and I say, wow. And that reminds me of the situation in Nigeria here. When Boko Haram started 11 years ago, people said, oh, some ragtag soldiers, Nigeria, that has been a global player, they will crush them. It is 11 years now. 11 years. 11 years. And there's no headway. So although the language of peace has become mere slogan in some lips, I don't want to belabor that, it is clear that what happened in South will have a lot of effects in the region. What I'm trying to say here is that we may not end up having that peace that we want if we do not also look at the bigger picture of what is happening globally in the what you call geographical territory of Southern Cameroon. There's no way you're going to solve the problem in South without linking to other initiatives. So this is an opportunity for us to look at what is happening in the northern or the southern zone, and so on and so forth. We need to engage with all these people and all these groups. But then there's a point there, and I've said it a while ago, and since we share this, people can look at that later on. Yes, extremists and radicals might take advantage to pull strings in the background, capitalizing on the chaotic crisis and trying to settle scores, whether political scores, traditional scores, and so on and so forth. This has already been happening, and we fear that it may continue to happen if we do not do our homework to begin to hasten the direction towards peace. Now, the challenge is that then so elite and the diaspora, I'm bringing the two together. I remember in my first intervention some time ago, I said, the diaspora and the rest will become almost like the new elite. The elite we used to know before was the elite, those based in Yaoundé and Douala and Bamenda, where you can say that it is no longer that elite alone that is the voices have expanded. And so there's no way and no day we will talk about the elite without talking about the diaspora. So we must live up to expectations in being part of the solution to this crisis. Armed with the conviction and driven by the love from so, of course, that is it. The So Peace and Reconciliation Initiative is anchored on the premise that although we may not be part of the problem, and I like so many people say that I'm not involved. Some people wash their hands like Pontius Pilate. I'm not involved, but we must be part of the solution. Yes, in conclusion, therefore, the NPRI team, what are we going to do from now henceforth? Yes, from now we will continue to brainstorm, to analyze the current context and the dynamics, bring some what I can call the coalition of the willing. The coalition of the willing is not everybody may want to be part of a process like this. There will be those who will be talking. There's those who will be even in the background and will not want to talk, but they are very important in doing this other issue. We will pull that coalition of the willing. But most importantly, as Pamela said a while ago, not only us who are talking on this, but we must go to the ground, because the difference with this one is that unlike other issues in peace, we must be on the ground. Our foot must be on ground zero. We must begin to look at those type of people that we engage on the ground. And friends, connectors, whoever at all levels, men and women who are already doing some work, we need to build this coalition of the living, of the willing, I beg your pardon, because we will need this critical yeast. This critical yeast, the language that is used in conflict resolution is when you put yeast into the bread and the flour and the rest, you see just a little bit, it does what? It makes it rise 4, 5, 10 times. We need people who will be the critical yeast in looking at solutions to this and identify possible entry points, facilitate and strategize a roadmap. Roadmap that can, of course, we will have a focus, but we will also be depending on the circumstances of the day to see whether there are great opportunities and stepping stones for us to jump in and do it. Yes, propose various committees that can help do this, but also to be on the ground. I repeat this. Now, of course, create a subcommittee that not more than 10 people who could advise on how to implement the fund's agenda for reconciliation, peace, and prosperity in South. I'm saying so because up somewhere, which I didn't want to elaborate so much, but it will come maybe in the culture, we know that the funds and our funds at the various kingdoms, especially the Paramount Fund of South, is the core, is the glue, is the center of all of the, or is the epitome of South tradition and culture. So this agenda is on. And those who could still remember so much, you go back to 2016, during the Cultural Week, the theme of that Cultural Week was reconciliation. I have never forgotten when I hear some of those words, because for me, when I big like I pick and put in my bag. But also in the botched attempt for the fund to reach back home in Bamenda, when he spoke, when we got our fund, speak for 1 minute, what we said is that the past is gone. Forget about the past, let's look into the future. Those to me, I didn't hear any other thing. That's what I heard. Because when I come with my own eyes, which I'm seeing, and those are the things I heard. That reconciliation and taking the past, that we must build and build from there and more strongly. Now, a caution, and with the permission of the President General, sons and well-meaning daughters should vacate the sitting on the fence attitude and join the mission to reconcile furthering kinsmen and women. This is, we sit too much on the fence to the extent that there are times when the fence will collapse, and that fence that we're sitting will collapse, and we will find whether our head will be somewhere and our leg will be somewhere. It will be a challenge. Let's move from that sitting on the fence. I have a metaphor when we'll be doing some trainings, which I'm proposing here, and lots of other things. We will come back to that. Finally, a detailed program of action will be drawn in consultation with the stakeholders on the ground, and so peace and reconciliation initiative will be more practical, realistic, and action-oriented. It will involve practical training, dialogue facilitation, mediation, and requires, of course, funding and budgets to work with organizations on the ground. One last thing I want to say, and I'm concluding now, is that we will not fear failure. Only some people, some political people fear to fail. In peace building, those who hold my hand, I will say, come. The likelihood of our success is just 30 or 20%. But anywhere we fail is a lesson for us to correct ourselves tomorrow. Very, very fair, Yuri.
For me, Ken, for that deep talk. Mo kiji Pam, as I'd love for a comment on it. Ma bati ayong for me kilun wa bati fa we ina. So Pam, over to you. Just maybe a comment.
Okay, Bill. In this opportunity for Bill for me, I would like to peace and development very yearly. So I elucidating it or explain it very carefully and with very great action points. Favors and Kifaji. I'm sungina la why yo tafa tangri sem yo kin decry the situation or why in the right context. So la mix it even chusimo. So better for me, more with juni plans already in action. And the next thing I need to we I wire ki wotoma for me show. So I junimoki more the plans and the juni. So Abdul and I'm now check it to yourself. How can I help in this? I kiwida and on the ground, but in case I negotiate with, you can link them up in for me so that we can realize this and stop, you know. So I think that's about it for me. I'm just, it's more introspection on what I can do to really support. And I hope that that's what everyone else is thinking. So no sitting on the fence this time, unfortunately. Very, very important.
Absolutely, very very Pam. And Akula Young Wiliji wasn't kula sunging about that at the end, but what I continue about you for President General Uku for a comment, maybe Imen could do for me King. So President, yeah.
Yeah, very good. Excuse me, very good. Why for me King last soon for young, very more soon. Person for Kaisi. Sha for Kai for Lisa for you Bonda as for Kai. We joined this team. Very, and I would all more according to Pam Sui. Kiwi mo walo water useful like your lembrushe bam. So offers your limb from bam. So offers ready for limuna waiting.
Right.